Email or die. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 194th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. In session 193, we heard from my partner, Jeremy Shoemaker from Nebraska. The man cannot stop inventing, but he says he's lazy. He admits it. But he's a geek, he's a nerd, he followed what interested him, and he has created multiple 8-figure businesses, and he's doing things his own way. If you did not listen to that, go to thesaleswhisperer.com/session 193 and check out the great advice that Jeremy provides. In the next episode, we have Mike Pashota. Mike spent about a decade in prison. He met his wife in prison. She was an assistant, volunteer working there, and stuck with him. They got married, and they've built a very successful marketing business because his back was against the wall, and he had to make something work, and he has. It's an inspiring story. I think you'll appreciate it. I think you'll get a lot out of it. This week, I have a bit of a fanboy crush on Mr. Ben Settle. The dude just calls him like he sees him. He is irreverent. And he is right. You will want to take notes. You probably have not heard anyone talk about email the way he has, the way he recommends you do it daily, and how to get that done and to what ends it achieves. In the same way, you probably have never had sales training like I offer in the Make Every Sale program. It is live and running now. We have a private Facebook group. You get lifetime access. So head on over to makeeverysale.com. Check out the landing page I have there. If you have any questions, hit me up. You know how to find me online. But I encourage you to do that now, because as everything has changed over the last decade and even a couple of decades, one thing that has not changed is that people are people. And how you connect with them, how you make the sale has never changed. I have sold retail. I have sold high tech. I have sold to Google. I have sold to Dell. I've sold real estate, insurance, you name it, just about I have sold it. I've literally sold around the world, won awards for my sales. I have, since running the Sales Whisperer now for a decade, have helped hundreds and even thousands of people get started with automation software. And I have helped everybody from laser eye surgeons to, good grief, chiropractors, dentists, contractors, IT people, a dude that does dent repair in Texas, wedding guide Chicago, out of Chicago. I mean, such a varied list of people. But one thing that has always remained common is that they are humans, and I am human, and I help humans sell to humans, and I'm a product of what I preach. So if you want to learn how to sell mo better, if you want to learn to stop chasing the shiny objects and just do what works, head on over to the Make Every Sale program, makeeverysale.com. Now let's bring on Ben Settle. Ben Settle of the Ben Settle Show, all the way from a secret place in Oregon. We won't tell anybody so the golfers don't come steal your tee times. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. I'm real good, Wes. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for carving out a little time. We've been online buddies for a while. We got a mutual friend, Doc Carney. That's a small world. I heard him on your podcast. I'm going to have him on and pick his brain. I may have to have him tone it down. I have a little more PG-13, maybe PG-17 kind of podcast. But he's an interesting cat, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. He... because you have to tone it down, you can't have him tell his dating stories.
I know. Well, we kind of can, but we kind of can't. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's all the sale, man. I'm actually, in my sales training course, I've got a big slide that talks about the sales pipeline. And on the top, I have a dating analogy, see a girl, ask her to dance, ask for a number, meet for dinner, meet the family, blah, blah, blah. And I equate that with selling, prospecting, making the call, setting up a demo, blah, blah. It's exactly the same. I mean, dating is a sale. But some people just don't have a personality or a sense of humor about things like that, do they?
Well, I tell you, I sell stuff from the dating niche from time to time, and the parallels are many between selling, marketing, persuasion. It's all the same.
Right. So for our listeners, though, that may not be familiar with you, would you mind take a minute or two, kind of give us a little thumbnail sketch of you, and we'll dive down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, I mean, I primarily teach email marketing. I've been a copywriter since 2002. But last 5 years, I don't do client work or anything. I primarily sell a newsletter called Email Players that teaches people how to double or triple. Actually, double is actually toning it down way too much. Let's say they make a lot of money with email, and that's primarily what I teach. But I also do other stuff. I've got my hand in a golf company, and I was telling you I sell some stuff in the dating niche and the prostate niche and some other things. But mainly that's what I do right now.
Dude, email? I mean, email's dead, man. Come on. Don't you know about Snapchat, text messaging? I mean, I don't know, smoke signals. Email, dude? What? Do you have like a dinosaur in your backyard? I mean, come on.
Well, I'll tell you this. I enjoy it. Actually, I'm lying when I say I don't enjoy texting. I don't like the physical act of texting, but I like the concept that you don't have to like waste time. You can just text something. Snapchat's the same thing. I look at that as video texting. It is the most convenient thing in the world. If I just don't want to text something, I can just do a little video and say what I got to say. But for selling, I mean, email is going to blow all that stuff out of the water. Email is a very, very powerful way to sell. In fact, just read any business news. It's always the number one driver of e-commerce right now, online commerce. So it's not really even, to me, it's not even really like a debate. It's just amusing to me. In fact, take it even a step farther. People say, well, isn't all the selling, everyone's on their cell phones now. So email, how does that work with cell phones? Well, the reality is most emails are checked on cell phones, but most sales are actually made on desktop computers. So, people could say that's a dinosaur too, the desktop computer. And I'll tell you what, billions of dollars are done every year in direct mail. So none of this stuff really dies, except fax. That died because laws, but none of the other stuff really dies.
Right. So that brings up a good point, though. I mean, between mobile and desktop, because last year we know that Google talks about mobile search, surpassed desktop search. We know that video is the bulk of internet, web traffic now, but you bring up a good point. When people finally do spend money, they're sitting at their desk. They're busting out their laptop. They're on their desktop to consummate the deal, right? So do you see that changing? Do you optimize for mobile with the understanding that an hour or half a day later they'll get to their desktop to place that order?
I actually don't even think about it very much. Here's the thing with email is I just show up every day, and when they're ready to buy, they're going to buy regardless, of how they do it. And you know what? You bring up something interesting. I want to do a little tangent here, if you don't mind, because this is fresh in my mind right now.
Okay.
I'm going to do a podcast on what I'm about to talk about here. So we talk about like mobile optimized, right? And like everything got to be like ready for the phone and all that. But I'm guessing that you read the Drudge Report. Would that be correct in that? DrudgeReport.com? Or that you know what it is at least?
I certainly know what it is. Yeah, I will peruse it from time to time, but I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. The point is you know what it is.
Sure.
So they get like 2 or 3 million hits a day. like it's one of the.
It's black and white, simple, plain Jane. Looks like Courier font, like an old school newspaper.
Dude, I could make that. And I have zero web design skills, but I could make that with the free Sea Monkey. I mean, that's my whole point. It's not optimized. It's nothing. It's ugly. It breaks every single rule of technology that, when people say, isn't this outdated and don't you have to optimize? It does none of that. And yet it is probably the most influential news site on the planet.
Sure.
Even though it's just an aggregator. It's not even original content. It's just, it's just what it is. It's infotainment. It mixes entertainment with hard news. And that is what email is all about too. That's the reason I bring it up. As long as you're doing that, you can do other stuff. I'm not saying you shouldn't do other stuff, and I'm not saying you shouldn't optimize for mobile and all that. I'm just saying it's message to market match. If you have the right message to the right market at the right time, they're going to buy from you.
Right.
You want to make it as easy as possible, obviously, but they will buy from you.
Right. So you mentioned something a minute ago. Said I'm just going to show up every day. When they're ready to buy, they'll buy. And I know you have a daily email, you have a challenge in your group, do this 30-day email challenge. And I know people will push back, but people in all types of industries are taking the challenge and they're having success. So I've got people listening right now, they are whatever, chiropractors, they own a restaurant, they whatever. And they're like, oh, no way. My business is different. My town is different. I can't do a daily email. And you would say to them,
I would say I'll take a word out of the English for my friends in Britain. I'd say that's rubbish. In fact, if a chiropractor, I don't care who it is. I don't care what business it is. I don't care what you're selling. If you have a list of people that are good prospects for what you have, and you are in front of them every day. Now, you can't just blatantly pitch them. Maybe that's what they're thinking, though. Like, I can't just blatantly pitch. Yeah, if you do that, that's not going to work for very long. But if you talk about the problems that they're dealing with every day, you cannot send too many emails. You're the sales guy, so you probably know who like Jim Camp was?
Yeah.
Okay. So he died last year. He's the world's most feared negotiator, and very brilliant guy, very brilliant salesman, persuasive guy. And he had this quote that I've never forgotten. Whether you're negotiating or selling or anything, and he would sell like water filters door to door to like these hostile prospects. He goes, as long as you're always safe when you're in the other person's world. So, for example, when he was selling water filters door to door in this neighborhood that had terrible water, right? And he would follow the script, and he would get no sales. He'd follow the sales script, get no sales. Finally, he said he threw out the script and just said, "Look, just tell me you don't want softer hair, and I'll leave you alone." And people would open the door and let him in. Why? Because he was in their world. They had greasy, crappy hair from the water, and so he got in their world. And then you can have, and he probably couldn't talk to them enough about how water affects hair. So the whole point is this: if in an email, you can do the same thing. So we're talking about the chiropractor, right? Well, there are so many people in pain out there right now. Like just focusing on golfers, for example. I always said there should be like a chiropractor who just specializes in golfers. Do you know how many? Like, you cannot talk to a golfer too much about golf. Like, as long as your email is related to golf in some way and related to pain in golf, they will love you. They will want 5 emails a day from you. So, when people say that kind of stuff, Wes, they're saying that because they're projecting, because they think they don't want a daily, but they're not their market, and they have to stop thinking like they're their market. They have to get in the heads of their market and think like their market, not try to guess what their market's thinking.
Right. I always say that, you are not your customer.
Yeah.
But great salespeople have great empathy. They can enter their world. Right? Robert Collier, enter the conversation going on in the mind of the prospect. Get in their world, like Jim Camp said, so succinctly. I mean, that's awesome. So how would somebody get started? And I got a restaurant on my mind because a friend of mine, we meet about once a month for lunch, and she has. She's very successful, occupational or organizational change management, PhD, travels the world. And there's a local little restaurant, kind of new, Spacito's. It's a mix of Cuban and Italian. And she's like, hey, I want to help these people. Can you give me a proposal? If it's not too much, if it's affordable, I want to implement it and help them grow. So I'm picturing this husband and wife that are great hosts and hostesses, right? They make great food. They're not great marketers.
Right.
And if I were to tell them, hey, look, just listen to Ben, send an email every day, they'd be like, I got to cook food,
Yeah.
But those are the kind of people that need this the most, right?
They are, and it's so easy. There's just, I don't know who, it was Perry Marshall. I don't know who came up with this concept, but it's really brilliant. It applies to emails. If you're selling drills, you don't sell drills. You sell how to drill better holes. And so with a restaurant, it's no different than that. You don't have to sell people on your restaurant. You can talk to foodies. What do foodies like to talk about? You can as long as you have a list of people in local area, right? And that's not hard to do. You can use some basic pay-per-click or whatever to get people on your list, right? Like your restaurant list. Sign up for this list and you'll get, free vouchers for free meals or free drinks, whatever you got to do to get them to give you their email address. And then just talk about healthy foods or whatever foods you're cooking. It doesn't have to be healthy stuff unless they're selling healthy stuff. But whatever it is that their restaurant does, you say it's Mexican food. So send emails about great, authentic Mexican food dishes and how to tell if they're real or not and what makes a good Mexican food dish and the health benefits of Mexican food and the things to watch out for about Mexican food restaurants and what some restaurants do that give people food poisoning and what other restaurants do, why they're 5-star restaurants and why the other ones aren't. And you just talk about Mexican food. I mean, if that's what people are into, I love Mexican food. Dude, if if there was a local place that would do that for me, I'd be in there probably every day. And especially at the end of every email, they give me some incentive to come in. Hey, come on in, you get a free margarita. Just mention this email and you come in, we'll give you a free margarita. Just come on in. Bring the family. Right. But why wouldn't you bring the family? You know what I mean? It'd be the easiest thing in the world to sell restaurant stuff, I think.
Right. But it's just not in their head, and that's the shift everybody needs to make. I mean, and that's the number one thing, you get old Dan Kennedy, right? I'm working with customers. I'm like, you got to realize your number one job is to market, and the number one job of marketing is to build your list.
Yeah.
Get a list of hungry, qualified people. Who was
it?
Who was it that had? Was it Halbert that had the story, you can have any advantage you want. We're going to go out and sell hot dogs. You can have any advantage you want. Everybody's like, yeah, I want all beef franks and I want, this and that. And he was like, I just want a bunch of hungry people.
Absolutely. And for someone who says, well, I don't have time, which is ridiculous because how long does it take to write an email to a friend? Really? Like, how long does it take to write a 200-word email? It takes 10 minutes. As long as you're talking about what's important to them. But let's say you just don't even have 10 minutes. Let's say you're cooking meals all day. You just literally don't have time or the interest to do it. Well, then just hire it out to a freelancer. It's really not that hard. Pay them whatever you agree to, and test their email out. If their email doesn't bring in business, you find a new email writer who will. But the point is, it pays. To me, it's talking about ROI. It doesn't cost anything to send an email out, and right. So I don't know. But there's so many ways you could get people. And I know restaurants is just one type of business. Chiropractors, talk about pain. Just emails about pain and back pain and things that are causing back pain and reasons why people have back pain. Talk about the psychology of pain. Do you know? I had this very interesting conversation with a pain specialist a few weeks ago. That guy could have 1,000 email ideas because there's so much to just the concept of pain that people who are in pain would love to hear about. My dad right now, here's another example. My dad has a mole problem in his yard. He's got like all these molehills just coming out of him everywhere. They're trying to kill these moles. They can't. Nothing works. You cannot send him too many, like if you were a pest control business or whoever deals with moles, he cannot get enough emails every day talking about that problem, So you just got to think. It all comes back to the market. As long as you're in their head talking about what's important to them, right. You won't lose, and just have something to offer them that they want.
Now, do you recommend, somebody's on their website, right? Do they say, hey, get my daily email and I will pester you for the rest of your life until you are so insane you will give me your credit card and I will charge it over and over again? Or do you say like, hey, get my guide, get my tips, and then maybe send that and say, hey, I have even more stuff I didn't talk about. It's sent as a daily email. Click here to confirm you'd like to hear from me daily, and this will come, right? So do you give a lead magnet and then ask later about the daily, or do you start with saying, hey, get my daily stuff right here, right now?
Well, I think you're going to find my answer kind of interesting, actually.
I find everything you do interesting. So you go, Ben Settle.
Well, I mean, especially interesting considering what you said in the first part of the question. So not just to appease Google, because I like to use AdWords, which they love 100,000% transparency, which I think is a good thing, actually. But because I think it's just a good way to bring people in. I don't even let them opt in unless they check a box. Like they can't even opt in at all until they check a box underneath the form that says very clearly, I agree I'm going to receive daily promotional emails from Ben Settle. So they know when they come in. Now, the bribe I give away, yes, I give away a lead magnet, whatever you want to call it, and it's very valuable. It actually has a retail value of, not a phony retail, but a real retail value of $97. It's the first issue of my email players newsletter. That's what it costs, $97 a month. So it's like they want to get that. Like that is why, and then that, hopefully, if they like that, they'll say, I need to hear more about what this guy has to say. And they stick around, and, a certain percentage will buy it. But yeah, you want to do, and I also believe in just 100% transparency. You let them know that they're going to get a daily email or weekly, however often you're going to send. I think it should be daily. But let's say you just want to send a bi-weekly email. So tell them right at the opt-in, here's how often you're going to hear from us. It's very, show them the privacy policy so they can see that. If you ever do like a heat map thing, it's interesting. We have like this heat map thing on our site, so I can see where people are clicking, where their mouse is hovering. And a lot of people look at that privacy policy. So that's something interesting to think about. People want to see it. They don't want to know that you're not going to spam them and everything. And I don't blame them. So 100,000% transparency. That should be the name of a new book I write or something. 100,000% transparency, and you can't go wrong.
Oh, I just bought that domain. I just bought that URL. So you're going to have to write something else.
Well, 200,000% transparency. I don't know,
but so when they opt in, do you have kind of a warm up, and then they get into the flow, or do they just pick up in the flow? Because I had Brian Switchcow on session 178, and he has ghostinfluence.com. And he has a daily, and his is funny. And his was like he sent an email like, "Are you sure?" You go, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay, remember, you asked for this, right?" And but he has kind of I don't know, a 3 or 4 email kind of warm up, kind of like about me sort of thing, and then you're injected into the daily flow. So do you do that, or do you just hey, they sign up on Monday and on Tuesday they get the first email?
Yeah, I don't do any warm-up type stuff. I just get right in there. Okay, there's 2 ways I do this. Well, it depends. Depends on the list. There's some lists that I've just kind of created an autoresponder and I don't think about it anymore. Ideally, and this is just the ideal way to do it, it doesn't always work out this way. I think the first email should just be very short, all above the fold, saying, here's the thing I was promised you. This is a daily email. If you ever want to leave, just scroll down to the bottom of any email and click the opt-out link. So I'm telling them exactly how to opt out. 100% transparency. Here's your bribe. The next day, you tell your story. Your story of how you became who you are. Whatever it is you teach. Here's I start out in hell. Here I ended up in heaven, so to speak. I was broke. Whatever you're selling, it just depends what it is. You just tell your story about how you got to be the point where now you're teaching whatever it is you're teaching, and put a link to buy whatever it is that you sell in every email after that henceforth. That's just the way. I'm not saying you have to hard pitch every day. I'm just saying you should let them know your product exists every day. And that's the ideal way to do it. Now, in my regular site, I don't do that because I send my emails fresh. I don't have an autoresponder. So the only email that's like automated is the first one that does exactly what I said a first email should do. Delivers the bonus, tells them how often they can expect to hear from me, lets them know if they ever want to leave, they simply scroll down, and it's all good. And then after that, they're just in my daily emails, whatever I'm sending, because every day I let the world know my product exists. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help anyone if I don't let anyone. Like I've done nobody any favors, especially not myself or them. If I don't tell them that, here, you have this problem, you want to make more sales with email, in my case at least, here's a solution for you. Whether or not you take it or not is up to you. I don't care, because I very much have a sales philosophy of how I do things. I don't ask people to buy. I give them an opportunity to buy.
Right.
And so that's kind of my mindset with that. So that's how I run those types of things.
Well, now you have a very small list of things that you sell versus like Home Depot, right? Where you could buy, you could rent a truck, you could, buy plants, you could buy a new toilet. Yes. So, I mean, if somebody has a big product line, do they just send a link back to their store? Or maybe they're like, hey, this is National Peanut Butter Day, and, you should never feed your dog peanut butter, but if you do and they throw up, you'll need carpet cleaner. So here's a link to our carpet cleaner that's on sale today in case your dog pukes.
Well, in that case, I would tell the story about someone whose dog puked right before a big party they're about to have. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But yeah,
hey, I'm doing it off the cuff, man. I'm not a pressure here, okay?
Yeah. No, that's fine. No, but I hope that helps someone listening. Like, that's the kind of emails I teach people to write, like stories. Don't just come out and say I have something for sale. Start with them and then build a bridge from the prospect to the product.
Would you focus like that narrowly, like on one specific product today? And then people are like, well, you know what? I don't have a dog. I don't have carpet. I'm renting, so I don't really care. So, but they did opt in. So maybe they are into cabinet building or something, obviously, with their hands and with tools, or maybe they have a little garden on their patio in their apartment. So would they just like, oh, never mind, I'll just delete that one and I'll wait tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow's National Fern Day and you'll have a special on ferns.
Okay, so it depends on what you're selling and how many products you have and how diverse the products are. But I'll tell you the advice I gave to one of my customers recently. Now he's a friend of mine too, and he has a equipment rental place. Like he rents different kinds of equipment it could be a rototiller, could be a drill. Could be, whatever, a trailer. It could be. There's all these different things. It's not like all the same stuff. For him, and I would recommend this in the case that you're saying here, is when they come in, when do they opt in? You want to immediately find out what it is they're interested in and segment them into the appropriate list for that. So, depending on how it could be a product category or it could be a specific type of thing, but. Let's say, you would ask them. They couldn't even opt. And there's software that could do this for you. I mean, you don't have to be like a geek to do it.
Yeah, at a minimum, ask them a little question with at least a few options, right? And maybe even a second question once they select and click through, just to sort of segment that list and help people self-select.
Yeah, are you into tools? Are you into housewares? Are you into auto mechanics? Are you into gardening? Again, it really depends what people are selling. Let's say it's a pet related store. So, are you into dogs? Are you into cats? Are you birds? Do you into whatever it is, and that way you have them at least in a topic where they'll relate to it, and you can further segment beyond there. That's like a whole. Segmenting is a whole other game. It's not really just an email thing. It's mostly a list. It's like a list management list. It's like a list thing, really. I mean, it's and by the way, it's a great question because it is 90% of the battle is getting them in the right list.
Sure.
Absolutely a good question. So,
but you basically sell one thing though, right? And that's your email players.
I do on that site. That's mostly what I sell. I have a podcast site that's a separate entity from my regular site, and we have a menu of products there. And it's just kind of random. The girl who writes the emails, I say, look, you just sell whatever you feel like selling today. There's like a product on copywriting. There's a couple of email products. There's something on storytelling and infotainment, something on podcasting. There's like a email swipe file product, sell the transcripts to the podcast. I'm like, just whatever it is that you want to sell. That's going to change though, because I don't prefer that type of selling. I really don't. I prefer to get them into one flagship product first. And then after that, sell them multiple things because then I can start segmenting them better. But so we're probably going to create like a membership site just for the podcast pretty soon. And that'll change things up significantly. But I'm a big believer in this thing called sequential selling when it comes to marketing. And that's something I learned from this guy, Sean D'Souza. Psychotactics.com is his URL. I have no connection to it other than that I'm a fan of his. And he teaches this thing like about sequential selling where you want to get them to basically you want to sell them one thing at a time up until a certain point. So in my case, I want them to opt in. I don't want them buying anything until they've opted in. I don't even let people buy. I mean, they could, but they'd have to jump through some hoops to buy before opting in. Then I sell them the one main product, which is email players. After that, I back-end sell them stuff by sticking offers in the envelope that's already going out to them. That's one way to do it. Now, in our golf business, which we're about ready to do a second relaunch pretty soon, it's different. We're not even going to do an opt-in. At least I don't think we are. We're just going to try to sell cold traffic into a monthly membership where they'll get eligible for free equipment, basically, just by being part of this. And then when they buy that, then we'll sell them other stuff. Then we'll segment them in. Are you into, are you in pain? Are you interested in, supplements? Are you interested in more equipment? Are you interested in this or that? So I'm a big fan of that. I really think you should get people in ideally. And it doesn't always work this way with like e-commerce, like the example you had. You want to have that flagship product where they buy that sets the tone for everything else. If you're going to do e-commerce stuff, I would say one of the best sites to model would be Amazon. Do you notice that you can't buy anything on Amazon until you've registered? Like at which point they're starting to segment you based on what you're clicking and everything. And that's very much by design.
Right. So I know people are going to push back and say, oh, man, I've got too much. I've got books. I've got CDs. I've got a membership site. And no way could I narrow that down to just one thing. That would just blow up my business. What do you say to them?
Well, give me an example of someone who would say that, because it depends on who it is and what they're selling. I don't know. Are they selling information? Are they selling physical products? Are they selling supplements?
Well, let's pick me, my favorite subject.
Okay.
So the Sales Whisperer has kind of become synonymous with Infusionsoft. And now I'm doing other products, HubSpot, Ontraport. But then I do have a sales training course that actually is rolling out right now called Make Every Sale. And so that'll be its own landing page, makeeverysale.com. And I'll do some high-level coaching, some one-on-one stuff, some consulting, keynote speaking. So, I mean, it's a potpourri of stuff all around sales and marketing. Do I narrow that down? Do I make people jump through those hoops? Or have a bunch of different domains so the message doesn't get watered down?
Well, you could actually do either one of those. If it was me personally, just because it's what I would do does not, believe it or not, necessarily make it the right thing to do. I'm
changing my whole model and my 7 kids and their well-being and my wife in the house and Decker the dog.
I like to keep things as simple as possible, which probably means that a lot of people won't resonate with what I'm saying. But I would make it so that they would have to opt in before they could do anything. Okay, before they can buy anything. I mean, they can get information about you on your site, of course, but to actually purchase something, they'd have to opt in first. And then I would sell them that main sales product first and foremost, right up front. And however much you want to sell it for, whatever. But after that, I would say, okay, now I have these other things you're now qualified to buy, because now this is my preference. I'd like to deal with people who are indoctrinated in my ways before I get too deep with them. For example, there are people who have invited me to speak. They're all on my list. Most of the people who have invited me to speak are paid customers of mine. Like, I don't have to sell them. I'm having me come in to speak. Like, it's just a natural thing. They're buying from me. They're invested in what I have to teach. Now, again, this is a scary thing for someone to just change up and do. I get that, especially if what you're doing is working now. But I like to keep things simple, and I love this idea of sequential selling, which, by the way, I'll give you an example of sequential selling. Now, we'll go back to restaurants. You ever notice that pretty much every restaurant does the following? And what they do is they're set up to extract the maximum amount of money out of you, and in a way that you actually like it. So as a customer. So you walk into a restaurant, and the first thing, unless you're getting takeout, okay, now I know people play devil's advocate. I'm just saying, basically, when you walk into any kind of decent restaurant, you can't just walk in and order something. You got to get seated first. They pour you some water, and then they ask if you want an appetizer and something to drink. And then after that, they finally sell you the main course. And then after that, they're like, okay, dessert, coffee, maybe some more drinks. It's very specific. There's a lot of psychology to that sequence. They've just extracted the maximum amount of money out of you in a way that you actually enjoy it. Like, you don't resent them for it. You're happy about it. So why not apply that to our other businesses too? And this also applies to karate schools. For example, you can't just walk into a karate school and say, can I have a green belt? It doesn't work that. You have to start at white belt. And while you're at white belt, you know exactly what the next conversion is that you're supposed to. You don't have to wonder what to do next. Just like in the restaurant, you sit down, you don't have to wonder, what do I do next? It's very obvious. They make it very simple for you. You're gonna buy this appetizer first, then you're gonna buy the main course, then you're gonna buy some dessert, and then maybe some drinks and some coffee or whatever. Instead of, you don't just walk in and they say, okay, here's a steak. Oh, and would you like some appetizers?
But Ben, man, there's the internet, dude, the interwebs. There's Yelp, there's social media. I can research. I know what I need. I don't have to have you tell me what to do and what order I want to buy in? Who are you to make me have to wait, huh?
Do you remember the car company Saturn?
Sure.
Yeah, they had this thing where they weren't going to have like commissioned salespeople telling people what to buy, and that didn't work out too good for them. So,
fine. Just
wait, what
brush
is that?
me off.
Wait a minute. There's a quote for that, and you probably know this better than I do. A sales quote. If people aren't at the mercy of your system for selling, you're at the mercy of their system for buying or something. Yep. We don't know how to buy. There's this guy, and I'm the same. I don't know how to buy. I have to have someone guide me through it. There's this guy named Doug Deanna, one of the top direct mail copywriters on the planet, and I had this opportunity to interview him once. And
what's his name?
His name is Doug Deanna.
Okay.
And he's a very interesting guy because he realizes as a direct mail copywriter, he is a salesman. And he goes, Ben, I have to go buy a car today. He goes, but you know what? I'm not going to be shopping for a car first. I'm first shopping for a salesman.
Yeah.
To help me. And we don't all think that way, but we all do it. We really do need help. Like we can't buy stuff without help. So. Yeah.
Amen. I mean, I tell people that all the time. I actually made a post this morning, put it on my Facebook page of 3 emails from 2 people that I got in the last 12 hours. And one was from some guy, I don't know, in Sweden or somewhere. And, it arrived at 11:59 p.m. and there's typos and it says, have a great weekend. And I'm like, okay, dude, you sent it at midnight on Sunday. Though I'm reading it on Monday. Weekend's over. You're an idiot. Delete. The next guy, I'm looking at doing artificial turf in my backyard. And we've gotten quotes, and then I'm like, you know what? I may tackle this myself. Summer's coming up, put the boys to work, and even though my wife would disagree, I do like doing handyman things. I'm just freaking busy, so I don't do them. It doesn't mean I don't like doing them, I've built things. I like building things. I like looking back and saying, hey, I did that. And that's one of the motivations as well. It's like, you know what? I'm going to tackle this. So I looked up some do-it-yourself stuff. I found a local company. It has a very thorough guide. Very well done. I've got it right here on my desk. I printed out 28 pages. Okay? You can hear it. And now I'm in their drip sequence, and that's cool. So I got 2 emails from a guy, from the sales guy, and typos. Bad typos, bad grammar, bad formatting, spaces. I know where they are. I know the street that they're on. They misspelled the name of the street in his signature. Okay, his work phone and his cell phone number are included, but they're in different formats. So, and one is highlighted because it's done properly, so you could click on it. The other is all run together, and you can't click on it. So, and I reply to him. I'm like, hey, thanks. I'm actually traveling this week. Can we catch up next week? I said, or I have my wife stop by. And he replies with more typos. So I'm like, okay, talk about like what Doug said. I'm looking for a salesman, right? And this guy ain't it. Neither one of these guys are. So I made an example of that, and I blocked their names out. I don't want to embarrass them, but those little things matter, and people just don't pay attention to it. So I'm going to make sure and link to Doug. I hadn't heard of him, but that's a great story.
Yeah, it is. I'm probably more forgiving of the typos than you are, but I almost don't trust someone who has no typos. Now there are limits to this. I hear what you're saying in that case. I mean, if he can't even spell his own street name right.
Yeah.
But there's this concept, and I love talking about sales stuff because really at the end of the day, I don't care if you're using email or whatever. It's all selling. There's this concept I've used for many years that I think has helped me. At least people have told me that it's one of the reasons they bought, is because the idea of being unokay. Like, I'm not perfect.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now there are some people, like a doctor. I don't know if I could trust a doctor who has neat handwriting. Nah. I don't know why. Maybe it's because so many doctors have crappy handwriting. But anyway, I don't know. I guess whenever I hear about typos and stuff, I get why people hate them because I don't like them either. But at the same time, I wonder if it almost makes some people more trustworthy than others. I don't know. I mean, it's like the door-to-door sales.
Hey, I send stuff out all the time, right? I'll send my weekly whisper, and as soon as I hit send, I mean, I will catch the big, ugly typo. And I'll send that thing to myself 7 times before I'll send it off. And it happens. I mean, when you're putting yourself out there, and I'm a big fan of pull the trigger and ride the bullet, right? I mean, good is good enough. But when you have I'm also a big fan of tools, right? Templates. Like I use Infusionsoft and HubSpot, and I have sequences, and I have footers and things like that built on purpose to save me time. And I could tell this is coming from his Microsoft server from their 365 because it's sent via blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a typo here and there when he's banging out a quick email, maybe he's on his iPhone, smartphone. Okay, I get it. But the signature is incorrect. It's like, come on, man. Okay. And, you want me to buy thousands of dollars of turf and materials. Are you going to get my quote wrong? Are you going to order the 1.5 inch instead of the 1 3/4 inch or whatever? I mean, that stuff kind of weighs on my mind, and so, but you're right. It does depend on what you're selling, but man.
No, I hear in your example, I agree with you totally. It's just one of those things that I think about sometimes where, do I trust this person more? Yeah. Like, do I trust the perfectly combed-haired, perfect suit salesman over the schleppy guy who's like living in 1995 still, but at least he can't be lying to you.
Right.
He's like too regular. I don't know. I think I just brought that up more to just have the discussion with another salesperson because it intrigues me.
Sure. And I always tell people if I talk more than 5 minutes, I will contradict myself. Right? I will give you 2 sides of the coin because there is. I mean, there's always 2 sides, 2 ways to look at it. There's always 3 sides of the story, right? Yours, mine, and what's right.
Well, absolutely. Well, I know that you're into politics, right? Like, remember Reagan was called the great communicator, and yet, talk about bad gaffes and getting things. It didn't matter because it wasn't really the words he used, and it was the intention and the story behind them. So I think about like him as the example. He was the great communicator, as people used to call him. I'm like, man, he sure did stumble a lot,
Right.
Talk, because it's really not about the perfect everything. It's about the intent and the context and the story you're telling and the emotion and all. Anyway.
Yeah. But
totally off topic.
And that brings up a great point too, though. What is communication? Right. And when we're doing this digitally, electronically, and this is my first interaction. Now, actually, when I get into marketing, I talk about being congruent, right? Your PPC ad must match the tonality, right? And the offer with your landing page, and the lead magnet must match that. But so this company, they popped right up in Google. Their landing page was awesome. Their offer was awesome. I mean, I read it. It's thorough. 28 pages, and that's small print too, right? This ain't just like a bunch of pictures of grass and turf. They get into detail on how to do it yourself because they sell the stuff. They don't do it. They sell the stuff. So all that's fantastic. And now my first interaction with a human being there is typos and the address is spelled wrong. So when we're communicating, now if he and I had this relationship, like you and I, if we're texting or chatting each other, and we use cuz and before, be and the number 4, okay, that's fine. We know each other and we're effectively communicating in that medium. So, you got to take it in its entirety, right? To understand.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, what it reminds me of is, and this isn't about typos or anything, but I was reading this book called No BS Time Management. It was like one of my favorite business books. Dan Kennedy wrote it. Yeah. And he's talking about like punctuality. He's like, he will not do business with anybody who's even like a minute late.
Yep.
And his reason was like, well, like he was talking about a printer he was going to do business with. And the guy was like 20 minutes late, and he's like, what if 20 minutes late in the printing business, you might as well be 2 years late because it's too late,
Yeah. So,
it really does matter, like the context, and if you're selling proofreading services, you better not have any typos, so.
Yeah. Amen. Zig Ziglar talks about, it's better to be 4 hours late than 4 minutes, or to be off by that. He's like, if my watch is off 4 hours, he's like, I know I'm off. if I'm off 4 minutes, he always says, I have this deal with the airlines. He says, if I'm 4 minutes late, they're allowed to leave without me.
What a nice guy to make that offer.
Yeah, and he's like, because, he says, if my watch is 4 hours off, I know it's the wrong time. But if I'm 4 minutes off, I can miss my flight. And so, those little things do matter.
Oh, yeah.
They add up. But, oh, well, we get off on all kind of tangents, man.
That's okay.
So, all right. So we've got your blog. Do you want me to link out to that, or are you in the middle of changing that, and we'll just go to bensettle.com?
Yeah, bensettle.com is fine. That's not changing anytime soon.
And I'm going to link out to your Antipreneur podcast as well. I've been digging that. And what is your relationship with Jonathan? Because I've been seeing more with him. It's Podcast Factory, right? Are y'all partners on this?
Well, he's been a customer of mine for about 5 years, and about 2 New Year's ago, so 2014 New Year's Day, I sent an email to my list. I thought it'd be kind of fun. Here's my goals for 2014, right? It kind of holds me accountable to them. And one of my goals was to start a podcast. Now I knew nothing about podcasts at the time. I just knew I wanted to do one. And he sends me an email and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to help you with that." And so he started helping me with that just because he wanted to. He admitted he just likes to get free coaching from me in the sense that he gets to work with me. But he decided to turn it into an entire podcasting business, which is what I'm not partners in that. We're just partners on my show.
Right.
But he's got his own his own thing of podcasts. He's got several podcasters that he does the producing for, and he takes care of all the technical stuff and all that we don't want to deal with.
Sure.
I just show up and talk, basically.
That's an awesome deal, though. I mean, you put yourself out there. He saw value in partnering. You get value in getting the technical help. Everybody wins.
Absolutely. It's been a great thing. I mean, it's turning into its own business. That's why it's separate from my regular business. I want him to deal with all the customer service and the finances and all that. I don't want to think about any of that.
Sure.
So it's kind of like just having another business, basically, where you're not having to deal with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I finally outsourced it, and man, what a relief! Just to get that off. Good grief, fellas!
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do all the audio engineering. I just couldn't even do it. It exhausts me thinking about it.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, you have found your sweet spot. So, like I said, I will make sure to link out to you there. And any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Where do I begin? Parting words of wisdom.
What I usually ask is, imagine, your listeners, everybody's here, they're on the podcast, but they're traveling, they're at the gym, they're in the airplane, they can't maybe do something right this second. But the moment that they can, right, the moment they can take action based on this podcast, based on your experience, what do they need to go do?
If you have an email list, write them an email selling them something. Tell a story about a problem that your product solves that happened to someone else or you, and then put a link in there and say, "I can help you with this if you have this problem," and see what happens. And
if they don't have an email list?
Okay, if they don't have an email list, then I would say the first thing you should do is build an email list, which is like a whole other, probably thing together. But find out how to build an email list, because it really is, you're leaving money on the table. I guarantee it. Yeah. If you don't have one.
Yep. I agree. I've done it from day one. All right, man. Mr. Ben, all the way from Oregon. Thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a great day. So there you have it. What it means to be a professional copywriter and why you need to become one fast. Why email is not only not dead, but why you need to focus on it now more than ever to grow your sales. We covered the two things you can and must do in all of your marketing to grow your sales, how to always be safe in your sales and marketing, and a whole lot more. Head on over to thesaleswhisperer.com/session194 for the notes, for links to everything I discussed. And be sure to show Ben a little Twitter love. He's kind of an introvert, believe it or not, a bit of a stalker, but he will respond to a tweet here and there, and lets us both know that you appreciate the show. And if you want to get mo better at selling, head on over to makeeverysale.com. You're going to hear me talking about that for a long time. It's going to be my signature program. I've actually got a friend coming over right now working on the presentation. We're going to be doing live webinars. You're going to see me speaking a lot more around the country, and the focus is on making every sale. So with that, have a great day. Be sure to show a little love on social media. Give us a 5-star review, and remember to sell different.